I'm going to start with this one here, relaxed poses. This is something that I like to talk about because it's something we don't really think about all the time, is how do we pose a character so when they're just standing and listening, when they're just kind of reacting to somebody else off screen or whatever that is, or it's the first pose before they go into an activity, into an action. And so I like to talk about this because oftentimes if you see this design all the way to the left, that's kind of how I started. I don't know about you guys. Front on character, arms to the side, very straight. And then I started realizing as I saw people in life, went, studied life drawing, went to the mall or coffee shops and started drawing people at a young age, I started realizing nobody really stands that way. It's not natural. So what's more natural is to have more S shapes. I like to call these, S shapes that are very rhythmic, like this. It could be, a little bit of uh, convex kind of here and then go into a concave kind of thing like that. Or it could be a really long S curve like you see in this overall line of action for this pose over there. But S shapes really give a pose more of a rhythmic, natural quality, a relaxed kind of feel. So I really like to talk a little bit about S shapes when I'm talking about designing for animation and just even really posing for animation. I think it's really key. So keep that in mind. Whoops, there we go. And you can see too, like this cartoony character, sometimes I'll bend an arm or have one arm against the leg or arms out sometimes. Again, breaking up that body a little bit, but not giving it too much energy. And I'll talk more about that in this next pose. This is arms at rest. Um, this middle pose here too, I'd like to say is probably the best example of arms at rest, because unlike this one way over here on the right, unless you're like in the military, we don't tend to stand that way in a very straight arms at the side kind of way. It feels unnatural. But to vary your arms a little bit, maybe one's away from the torso, maybe one's against the torso, um, to have those S curves and feel like a weight is shifted onto one side. You can see that in this pose too. It's not real. This is really not natural to bow your arms out like that, although it is something that happens when we tense our arms. If you've ever tried to like tense your arms and your shoulders are tense and the arms tend to veer away from the torso when we do that. This is kind of a gag drawing here, but that's why when you see like weightlifters and stuff, they could barely, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they could barely put their arms together because those muscle groups, I don't even know all the names of them. The muscle groups are just so protruding that it makes it hard for them to even put their arms at their side. I always thought that was kind of funny. I put this down here. This is a note too. This is for somebody. If you guys have a hand available, just like try and tense that right now with me. Tense your hand. Okay, so that means all your fingers are splayed apart. Now let it relax. Just relax the muscles. What happens? We see a cascading effect with our fingers here, right? All of a sudden, from the pointer finger all the way down to the little pinky, there's a cascading action. As we create try and now go into a fist, and you'll see that happens in the movement of bringing your fingers together into a fist. Also, there is a pinky first kind of thing that happens. So that's a natural state of drawing hands. So when I draw hands, a lot of times I'm doing things like this, where I'm thinking about how those fingers cascade in like that. Or if it's down by the side, I'm curving those in a way where it feels like we wouldn't even see the pinky necessarily because it's being brought in so much. And that's because that's a natural curl that happens. We have basically kind of claw hands, if you will, in the way that when we're in a relaxed state, our fingers naturally curl or curve in a little bit. So I think about that all the time when I'm drawing a hand that is in a relaxed state, but still posed. Now, after that, I also think about elbows a lot too. I think about, hold on one second. I feel like I need a 6-point for this. Okay. This is something that I've noticed too. And again, it comes from analyzing people, how they move, what are kind of typical body mechanics. Hey, Melissa, are we out of time?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm just visiting.
Great. It's something that I think about all the time is basic body mechanics too in posing that when we're in an active state, meaning ready to launch or ready to grab something or move forward, our elbows tend to go away from our torso. That gives us more mobility in a natural state. Whereas if our elbows are in, we tend to be more protective. We tend to be in a position of inactivity. These are some examples that you see with the caveman guy here or this lady here. This also really shows, S curves and things like that we were talking about before. But also, you can see this guy in the left example here. There's kind of a feeling that he's more active because his elbows are high and he's about to go into maybe a run or launch himself forward. Whereas the elbows down gives it more of a relaxed state for the arm. Same thing with this little bear here, right? This is my own little philosophy, but I always feel like with my characters, when I want to show them about to become active, if my wrists on the characters are above the elbow, so anywhere above the elbow, no matter where the elbow is at in space, then it's pretty active if that hand is above the elbow. If the hand is down below the elbow, that's a more inactive hand. So I think about these things when I'm posing characters. It really gives me a sense of getting a natural state, especially for a start pose in a scene in animation. If I'm like, okay, I got to draw the character before they launch into action, the first thing I think about is, are they in an active kind of attention? Are they really concentrating on something in an active way, about to do something? Or are they being pretty inactive and pretty chill when I first start the scene? And that really helps me to know how to start the scene, the first pose. Of course, there's always hookups and things you question later on too, but that really helps me a lot. Um, so this goes along with that, that kind of philosophy of arms in and inward usually signifies something is a character that is protective or defiant or shy or anxious. But when we have our elbows and our hands within our torso, that usually means that we're in some way being protective or even shut off, I guess you could say, for like this middle pose here. Shut off from ideas is another way of saying it. And then hands out or outward or even aggressively above our shoulders, very active, expressive, celebratory, outgoing, somebody that really wants to get their ideas across or wants to be heard will be in a more physical state and have their hands and arms outside of their torso. Particularly important for like Looney Tunes. You'll see this a lot with broader animation, like Looney Tunes or something like that. Characters really out there throwing their hands around in very active ways. Oh, if you guys have any questions too, go ahead and pop in. I mean, I certainly could talk for a long time on this because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, talking about posing.
Yeah, so one of the things, guys, is just if you have a question, just drop it into the chat for us, and I'm gonna jot it down. And then once we get back into the main session, I'll be able to pass it off to Melissa so that everybody can hear the answers to those questions.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
We are going to have a Q&A session that we're coming out of after this like teaching moment.
yeah.
So,
But feel free to fire off, and I'll get them down for you.
so just like I was talking to you guys about how we usually start with standing and posing a standing figure, the same thing is true usually when we start to pose a character sitting in a chair. So I like this example because oftentimes, younger artists, new artists will draw a character, and if it's a regular seated chair, they'll seat their character right up against it, like in this L shape here, back against it, butt against it, legs against the chair. That's not natural. None of us really sit that way. And you can see this is like a 3/4 view of this little bear character of mine sitting that way. It just, and arms at the side. It just doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't say anything. There's no personality there. There's no entertainment value. So instead, look at how I'm starting to think about posing in these little thumbnail drawings on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those give you a more relaxed state, but it also starts to tell you something about how the character's thinking, what they're up to, what they're about to do, maybe. You get from this pose number 3, for example, because he's all the way back on the chair, but really thrust forward in the pose, he's bent forward. It gives you a sense that he's listening, he's intent, and probably going to jump out of the chair at any moment. Like he could definitely get right up and start to yell at somebody or do something or pick up something off of a table or something like that. Whereas 1 is a great example of, not only is it a nice S curve kind of line of action to it, but it has a real chill vibe to it, right? Very relaxed, kind of. This is how I sit when I'm working. It's probably not the best pose for an artist to have, right? But when I'm working, I'm usually like, my butt's way forward in the chair, but my back is leaned up against the chair, and I have this arch in my back. So that's probably why I have back problems. No, just kidding. But let's see some other examples, shall we? Straight, stiff, that's the first one. Boring, no emotion, no personality. But then I'm starting to think of like, how are different ways that this character can sit, and what does it say? So I thought of like a child that's like excited and sitting there. Maybe a cake is coming to be put on the table. It's his birthday, so shoulders high. Also the tilts on the head, it becomes really important in the acting too. Tilted down head with his eyes looking up tends to look more innocent, right? And same thing here for comfortable and confident. I got him that S curve again, so it feels relaxed, but also he's got his arm thrown over there, and maybe a little more cocky expression from the eyebrows that we're getting from that one. Here's some more. Unconvinced, interested, still head tilted down, but this time in a way of like, yeah, come on, tell me more, what do you got? This one, the opposite. He's back, he's protective, his hands are in close, just like we were talking about before, elbows in. There's a protective, I say upset, but this could also be like not buying it. So maybe it's a conversation going on and the character is just not into it, not really buying what's being said. This one, unconvinced. This one is very like, this is my teenage pose, actually. I'm thinking of my daughter when I drew that. Skeptical. And I love this too, because I didn't really talk about this, but legs apart from each other, hands in the middle there, definitely has that vibe of like not really caring. There's this, I like this shoulders down feeling that it gives us too. And then the expression really helps sell that feeling of skeptical, like listening, but also not buying it. Full, lazy. This is just a for fun pose. Scared, like we talked about before. Again, this time is not only arms in towards the torso, but the knees are up, holding himself. Paranoid look on his face. Obviously, then that's going to give you a feeling of sitting there on the chair, but scared of maybe what's coming. One more. Irreverent. Well, that's just somebody fooling around for sure. Confident, pleased, and then stubborn, all the way back, away from the person that's maybe talking to them, all the way back in the seat this time, arms crossed. And notice the head tilt too there, the nose up in the air. It gives a feeling of aloofness, not listening, stubbornness, but definitely aloofness. You get that here too with this one, with the head tilt up. So I think about head tilts also. This isn't just about body position and posing, but Also, how does our expression and the tilts on the head really play into the performance also? So some of these are subtle things and some of them are just like basic things that you want to think about when you approach. How does my character sit in this chair? We have a little bit more time, so I want to talk about weight a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go to, because we were just talking about it, head tilts and twists to try and get this kind of stuff into your poses. I think is really helps, and it's pretty meaningful. But you can see with this bear character right here, he is tilted back. I'm going to turn that level on in case I want to draw something here. You can see how he's tilted back this way for the most part, but his head is tilted down. The chin is down into the chest area and the chest is coming up into it. Just by doing that, it gives an interesting look to it, kind of a confidence too, but also, again, with a cute character like this, I want to tilt the head down to create more forehead. By doing that, this is more of a character design advice, but by doing that, he tends to look more innocent and cute with his head down. That's why when you see Mickey Mouse, I mean, Mickey's eyes, they tend to be, or at least when I draw them, they tend to be a little bit lower. The nose is below the eye line and his eyes are up here. So that you can keep this little space down here for his mouth. Whatever he looks like. But also, you know, there's tilts here of on this girl here, her hips are going a different direction than her shoulders. I could even push that more if I wanted to bring this hip down a little bit more and this one up a little higher maybe, or this shoulder up higher. Definitely here, there's a feeling that he's just turned and so his feet are facing forward, but he's got a twist in his body and also looking 3/4 back behind him. You're getting the same thing here with this guy. So twists, tilts, head tilts, torso tilts, shoulder tilts are very important. They can really help somebody feel more natural, but it also put some more interesting element to your line of action.
Hey, Tony, I got a question on the lesson here from somebody though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ethan asked, how do you think overlap plays into posing? I think it's the secret to these posing principles. So how do you think overlap plays into posing?
Yeah,
Could you show us an example?
I should have a card on that in itself, but I mean, here's some great examples. This is my examples for straights versus curves. That's a drawing basic. A lot of people learn in high school, but not too many. I must say, not that many high schools do a great job of teaching art anymore like they used to. But in my high school, this is where I first learned about straights versus curves. But then, yes, when you're talking about overlapping elements here, you can see how I'm purposely drawing this shape in front of this shape. So this shape is definitely in front of that shape, and it's what gives us perspective. It's what gives us some depth. You definitely get a feeling of this whole shape is in front of this rib cage shape here in this pose. I'm doing it in very simple lines here, but you can definitely see how overlapping shapes of all three of these main shapes of the arm are giving ourselves a sense of foreshortening. I really do that a lot when I'm, oh, I think our time's up. Is that right? All breakout rooms will close in 52 seconds.
Yes.
50 seconds. All right, well, I'll just summarize by saying thanks for joining me on this little, I just want to give you an example of some of the things that I go over. Some of the stuff in 2D animation foundations, that first certificate. Some of this is more advanced, and I would hit it probably in more the advanced 2D advanced animation certificate. But either way, these are important elements for animators start to learn. if you've already done a portfolio and had an undergraduate degree in some art animation degree, then this would be the next step, is to learn some of these animation principles and thoughts on posing. Thank you guys we're going to break out now and go back to the main room, okay? And we'll see you soon.